Hey guys, I'm learning TFT. In this video, I'm going to share with you Aesah doing a 13.5 patch rundown where he's going to talk through the changes for this upcoming patch. Mordog did say that some of the individual numbers may change, but most of it should be locked in. So in case there are any last minute changes, that's going to be why. Before I jump into the video with Aesah, I'll first talk about like kind of a summary of the changes. Then I'm going to go into the Tactician's Trials snapshot, which happened this last weekend, and my kind of experience with that. I wanted to share with you all since you've been along with my learning journey. I appreciate all of you who've been really supporting me through all these videos. I'll talk about my match history learnings recently. This was from last Friday. As I was preparing for the snapshot. And the meta mindset idea of the day is about keeping your cool. So that's what this image really represents. And especially as you are, for me in this case, just like trying to qualify for trials in a more high pressured situation. Let's say you're getting ready for a tournament, or let's say in life, in the inevitable storms, tsunamis, fires, in LA right now, whatever comes your way, making sure that you're ready to keep your cool is useful, not just in TFT, but one of the most valuable skills you can learn in life. And I wanted to talk about some of the challenges that were thrown my way this last weekend, and you might be surprised by what happened. But I'll first give you kind of a high-level impact, most impactful changes of Aesah's rundown. And if you want to jump straight to the video and hear Aesah's really thoughtful and detailed analysis, feel free to check out the timestamp in the description below. So overall, no huge changes to the meta, most likely. As far as units go, Victor was buffed, so he might actually be viable as a 3 damage item carry the moment you see him. That remains TBD, but that is one hypothesis that Aesah has that might be viable. Mad Chemist got a reasonable buff, and you want to build, according to Aesah, you want to build him with more AP and like Morello, not really with healing. And his healing was actually buffed, so he has built-in healing, I believe. Another unit that I had on here that may or may not make this cut is Cassiopeia was buffed, and Dominators was buffed too. So it is possible, especially with Trifecta, the augment being buffed too, it's possible that Cassiopeia and Blitzcrank reroll becomes meta, or at least A tier. So I'm not going to bet on that, but I think that's a dark horse for a really possible big change to the meta. As far as augments go, the biggest change is diversified portfolio, which before gave you, I think, 1 gold for every 3 traits active. I forget exactly what it was, but what it is now is going to be 2 gold for every 4 traits that you have active, which is very impactful as a silver augment. And there are some lines that you can take similar to Bronze for Life at level 8 that you can essentially be getting 4 gold per turn, which is on average more than Fire Sale got pre-nerf. So this is probably going to be an S tier augment moving forward. At the gold level, Glass Cannon got a big buff, which is really good for front to back comps. Trifecta got a big buff, which is good for 3-cost reroll. So it is possible that we could see a 3-cost reroll meta. Urgot was nerfed, so some of the 2-cost rerolls were nerfed. So, and like 6 Visionary was nerfed, which impacts Renata. So we'll see if there's some new 3-cost rerolls that pop up, like Cassiopeia. I mean, TF and Loris was kind of a thing, but maybe that becomes more popular with this. Swain and Nami reroll definitely, it will likely be strong. And then at the prismatic level, a movable object was nerfed really big. So Aesah is saying that it's possible this might not be takeable without scrap now, because they just have to balance around scrap. And then Trifecta 2 also got a big buff. At the anomaly level, Touch of Frost was buffed, so there are a lot of playable units. Basically, any unit with backline access to chill the enemy backline can be quite good. So these are probably the most impactful changes in the patch. Of course, it will remain to be seen what actually happens. But Asa does a much more detailed rundown in the video up ahead. Before we get there, I do want to talk about the trial snapshot. Um, First off, I want to share a video of what happened to my car on Saturday morning. So the snapshot occurred on Sunday night, and I was, where was I? I was like probably 150 LP away from wherever the cutoff was on Saturday morning. And usually on weekends, I need to spend more time with my family during the day. So I didn't really have that much time and that many games in me. So I was like trying to get myself in a mental state to really focus during the time that I was going to be able to play. And on Saturday morning, I brought my daughter to a gymnastics class. And when I got back to the car from the gymnastics class, this is what happened. And I actually wasn't here when it happened, but this was from the dash cam footage from my car afterwards. And this is what I came back to. So an old lady, like somehow lost control of her car and crashed into the back of my car, onto the sidewalk and into the wall. So I walked back to my car on Saturday morning, and there was a huge wreck. The entire backside of my car was destroyed. There were cops, people watching, and I'm with my daughter. I'm like, that's my car. So anyway, that was my Saturday morning as I was like trying to just get into a mental state to compete. And fortunately, on Saturday, if we go back to Saturday, where's Saturday? That was February 1st. I started off the day poorly, but overall for the day, I went up 75 LP. And then yesterday, I was able to keep my cool, got an additional 132 LP, and ended up 153rd in the trial snapshot. I believe someone had told me 158 is where the cutoff was. So I made it with about 20 LP to spare. But all of that is to say, you know, when you go back to like, where did I start off on February 1st? I was like somewhere around here, 645 LP. So I needed to climb, what was that, 220 LP in a day or 2 days? And the morning started off, you know, with this car crash here. And so going back to this, you know, that's what I want to talk. Maybe I'll talk about this meta mindset first, and then I'll go into my match history learning since we're on this topic. You know, life is going to throw you random shit like that. And it's up to you whether you can sit in the storm and keep your cool, your mental calm, and still perform and still go about life when, you know, the world around you seems to be thrown into the apocalypse, which is literally happening in like LA, and arguably is going to continue happening more as, you know, there could be some form of a technological apocalypse, like climate change is messing up the world, you know, or it's just TFT, you go on a low roll session, right? And so on the topic of keeping your cool, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, said, "We have to learn the art of breathing in and out, stopping our activities, and calming our emotions. We have to learn to become solid and stable like an oak tree and not be blown from side to side by the storm. So when stuff happens to you inevitably in life, like I think I've overall been fortunate that not that much shit has happened to me in my life. But when stuff does happen, learning to be solid and stable, to calm your emotions, and really the art of breathing, when you are able to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, it's actually a signal to your brain to slow down, calm down, and then your rational, intellectual, calm mind can return. But when shit hits the fan, and if you aren't able to really go back to that core of calming down, breathing in and out, which I was doing a lot this last weekend, you know, whether it was from the car crash or, you know, I had this like pretty big downswing right here and I thought I was out of it. I dropped like plummeted 100 LP in, what was that, 4 games or 3 games? So I had a straight 6, 7, 8, and I was like, all right, it's over, right? But your ability to take some deep breaths in and out, continue to stay calm, have faith, and believe in what you're capable of doing, that is what will help you not only in TFT, but tremendously in life. Uh, and so I was doing a lot of that deep breathing this weekend, and it helped me a ton. Hermann Hesse, the author and philosopher, said, every young farm boy knows that the hardest and noblest wood has the narrowest rings, that high on the mountains and in continuing danger, the most indestructible, the strongest, the ideal trees grow. So the basic idea is that the strongest trees in the world, they didn't grow up because their environment was easy. The strongest trees, the ones that are the mightiest, the most indestructible, the most ideal tree, they became that way because of all the challenge, because of all the struggle, because of the storms, the fires, the controversies that they had to go through. And their ability to withstand all of those challenges is what contributed to them being forged through fire, becoming so strong. So instead of viewing those challenges as a victim and saying, woe is me, like, why does this have to happen to me in life? How come I'm always the one that low rolls in life? Instead of having that perspective and that mindset, which is natural, it's like that was my first thought with this car crash. I was like what the actual fuck? Like, how does this happen? And I didn't actually see the crash, right? Like this was in my dash cam afterwards. What I saw was literally the damage in the back of my car with my car tilted sideways, and my brain could not comprehend initially, like, how did that even happen? I would expect a crash. First off, you don't really expect a car crash in a parking lot. And then secondly, I would expect it from the front. Like I would reverse back in, but it should be, out on the street side, not on the wall side. But instead of viewing, the low rolls that come your way as oh, God hates me, Mort Dog hates me, whatever it is, like inhabit this deep breathing, this image of the tree, the strong tree that's like, hey, this is going to help me get stronger. There's an opportunity here for me to practice what I call to my kids Jedi training. Every storm that gets thrown your way is an opportunity to practice your Jedi training. Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, using order to deal with the disorderly, using calm to deal with the clamorous, is mastering the heart. And so the more you're able to inhabit these ideas, whenever storms come your way, that's how when you get older, and you turn 30, 40, 50, 60, as the world gets more and more crazy and you can stay calm, when you can stay at peace, when all this stuff is happening in the world around you, and you're immune to your environment and the low rolls that come your way, and you can find peace and happiness no matter what's going on around you, that's like, to me, like one of the most ideal forms of life that you can live. And also in TFT, if you want to be able to climb, you want to get great at this game, this is basically the same methodology that is required. I remember Setsuko, after he made it to Worlds, I believe, that one year, he had an interview and he was talking about how whenever storms would come his way in the past, because he played League competitively before, the storms would get to him. He would panic, he would shut down, he would play suboptimally. And over time, he learned to embrace, the storms and figure out how to keep your cool. And more importantly, what was really driving me, during this period is actually using the storm here, right? Where you're like, oh, like, I can't do it. Or you're losing faith. Or just you're low rolling. And using that as fuel. And that's one of the great things about the late Kobe Bryant that my wife and I really resonate with, is like that Black Mamba mentality of, yeah, there's going to be haters out there. There's going to be shit that gets thrown your way. But if you can transform that negative energy into positive energy to fuel you and energize you, that's how you become like this tree, this just super powerful. So that's your meta mindset of the day. Um, I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have some experience recently that happened to you that you want to share in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the intro. And with that said, let's go into Aesah's 13.5 patch rundown. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
So I haven't looked at this too much yet, just very briefly encounters. So obviously, like a lot of people do not like Warwick or Mel that much. So these two are reduced. Um, traits. This is listed as large. I feel like this is really small for Dominator. 50 extra shield. This is really only relevant on just your frontline units. So with 4 Dominator, let's say you have Mordekaiser and Mundo, it's really like 100 shield total for kind of your entire board. It's not that relevant on your backline. So I would actually say this Dominator change seems extremely strong to me, small to me. But overall in the patch, I think more things are being nerfed than buffed. So that may make things that like kind of don't get changed, like Dominator, to be stronger relatively. Enforcer. This also looks like pretty small. 3% HP shield on 6 Enforcer. 8 Enforcer is actually nerfed a little bit. So yeah, again, it's listed as large change, but I think like Dominator and Enforcer are both like extremely strong. Small. Emissary, kind of same thing here as Dominator. You kind of only care about this on Ambessa Garen. So Garen does get a little bit extra scaling, but also seems pretty small to me. Same thing with Experiment. This only affects the emblem. 10% HP. We'll make it a little bit weaker early game. This already got nerfed in a previous patch, but yeah. Still really like Experiment emblem still strong early game probably. Pit Fighter. So 6 Pit Fighter and 8 Pit Fighter both buffed. 8 is already pretty good if you can get there. It's not quite as good as like 9 Scrap or 10 Rebel, but I mean, you only need 8, level 8, so it's a big difference there. And it should beat like most standard boards if you can make it. 6 Pit Fighter. I'm not very convinced that this does a lot. 6 Pit Fighter as a comp right now is extremely not viable. I guess outside of like family reroll, which isn't really that good either. So if you are playing that, probably a little bit bigger spike when you get there. But it seems pretty. Out of all the changes so far, it's the biggest change, but it doesn't seem like enough to me to make Pit Fighter like kind of a viable comp. Rebel, 3% on up to like 7 units. To me, this is probably like the biggest difference compared to some of these other ones. I guess this is pretty similar to Enforcer. Base HP percent is a little bit better than HP Shield. But yeah. I would say like this. These are honestly all like pretty small, but I would say like the Rebel and Enforcer ones are probably the biggest. But the Rebel is the biggest overall because base HP is better. Visionary, nerfs to 6 Visionary. 6 Visionary was doing really well, so pretty small nerf. Again, like 5% less, so this is about like a 6 to 7% nerf, which tends to be pretty small. So I guess just like the entire patch overall, probably nothing too big, so it's listed under large trades. Twist Craze, your mic is echoing a bit.
Oh, sorry, I'll mute.
Yeah, it's no problem. Just figured I'd let you know. Let me know if I have any issues as well. Any audio issues. So Kembaran, you can't get the emblem anymore. They rebound some of the other things. There's a lot to look at. I would say, I mean, the biggest difference by far is a 6 Kembaran, but since there's no emblem, you have to get Savika to get this. What did 7 Kembaran give you on live? Let me just check real fast.
It was 100 on loss.
100?
Like standard. Like
yeah, so this is about
like 3 loss, so it was 100.
Yeah, so I guess if you can somehow high roll Savika, it makes it a lot better, but I mean it's just kind of it's already kind of a risky trade, obviously. So it's going to be a lot kind of. I assume it's going to be riskier because the gap between hitting Savika or not hitting Savika seems to be pretty high. If you can get like 6 for like even like 3 rounds, that's almost an entire tier. Honestly, like it seems really hard to get 6, right? Because the earliest you can realistically expect to find a Savika is like 4-1 at the absolute earliest. Um, I guess maybe you could do more of like a where you like win stage 2 and 3, and then you pivot into Chem Baron, but it still looks kind of to me because you generally can't afford to take that many losses after stage 4. Overall, I would say it's probably worse just because you can't get the emblem. Without the emblem, it looks fairly similar. At 5, it went up by 5 Chem Baron, it went up by 5, but it doesn't seem that much. Honestly, overall, I would say if you don't have the emblem, it seems fairly similar to what it used to be. But not being able to get emblem is a big nerf to the trait overall. A little bit of rebalancing on the perfected items. This one was really bad. These two are really good, so makes sense. Very small, 9 conquer, okay, 9 scrap, pretty irrelevant changes. 1, 2, 3 cost, so Draven buffed, this is a little bit less than 10%, so I guess this will make kind of like family reroll a little bit better. I'm not really sure if there's any other lines where you can really play Draven 3, which is the only breakpoint he's changed at. Steb, this is a slight nerf to Steb, I think. The Steb Trundle opener has kind of been just like the strongest, so it's really small, honestly. Like I think like the dev team has been on record saying, and I agree with them, that the patch this set has just been really well balanced, so they probably don't want to make like any really big changes compared to what you're probably used to if you've been playing TFT for a long time. But everything seems pretty small, which I think makes sense. Ergot 3 was still doing pretty well, so it wasn't doing like amazing, but again, not like a humongous nerf. This is like less than, again, like 7% ish on the secondary, and then like 8% ish. So again, I say this every time, but just as a reminder, 5% is usually considered like a standard small nerf, and 10% is like a standard big nerf. So a lot of this is like kind of in between. Cassio, we're kind of going the opposite way here. Again, the changes are about like 7-8%, so kind of a medium-sized buff for Cassio. I'm a little bit skeptical. Actually, the splash damage is a little more, but this is only once every 3 attacks. So this might be like 10%, 10% overall damage. So this is actually pretty big. I think Cassio was like really weak on current patch, so 10% is kind of a lot. And like we talked about earlier, there are more things getting nerfed than buffed. Like a lot of these buffs, like Draven, like this doesn't really matter that much. So maybe Cassio would be viable. She's also a lot depends on like how contested it is with a Dominator line, because now there's not a lot of people playing Cassio, so you can actually 3-star her pretty realistically. A lot of the Black Rose players are playing like Sorks and not fitting Cassio in. But I think this is kind of like a wait and see. I think she'll probably be finally viable as like a primary carry, which she has not been all set. Ambessa buff. I think Ambessa's been fine, so this will just make her a little bit better. I think Ambessa's always been like pretty reasonable to itemize. So this is actually pretty big, honestly. I think she'll be quite good next patch. The size of the change is not that much bigger or smaller than some of the other units we've talked about, but I just think like for someone like Draven, where it's like this unit is basically never primary carried ever, to Ambessa, who's already seen a decent amount of play as primary carry or secondary carry, this is a lot more impactful. Echo, this is like a 5% nerf. Echo's just been doing really well in both amateurs as well as scrap. So makes sense here. Echo got buffed multiple times in a row. So I guess they're like just pulling back on some. It's also with some of the meta changes because I think last patch was also one where more things got nerfed than buffed, and Echo was buffed. So pulling him more back in line, Echo will still be good. Again, 5%, pretty small, small nerf. Heimer, this is also like 5%, so small buff to Heimer. Sixth Visionary was nerfed also, but I guess like primary carry lines. I think like Sentinel Academy was lagging a little bit compared to other stuff, so this will bring it up a little bit, but it wasn't like super weak or anything, so he doesn't need anything huge. Overall, just like a lot of the changes are really small. I wouldn't expect the meta to change too much from what we're used to. Basically, things that like Echo and Heimer are going to be like slightly worse or better, respective. But I would expect these to be, the meta to be still very stable. 10 mana on Elise. This is fairly impactful. I'm sure all of us have experienced many times where like an Elise dies right before she's able to cast. So an extra 10 mana it's actually kind of a lot because a huge part of this jump, the 50 to 160 where she needs 110 mana, a huge part of that is just her natural HP bar getting hit where like she always gets like X amount of mana no matter what. So now she needs like one more entire auto attack on top of that, which is actually a lot. Um, the amount of fights where like an Elise would have casted and doesn't now, it's gonna be like if you position her the way you're used to, it's probably gonna be like more than one a game, which is very impactful. I think you can kind of mitigate this by either with items or positioning her safer. But obviously, those are both downsides. But I would say like protecting her Elise is probably more important now. Make sure she gets those auto attacks off.
Wait,
Mundo.
Can you explain that to me? I think I don't get the thing because it seems like it takes the same amount of time to cast, no? Or like
Oh, you're right. Okay, I thought it was 50 out of 170. No, actually, yeah, you're completely right. So they only nerfed her
for the
second
second
cast.
right?
Yeah, this is only really relevant for like 6th Bruiser or 6th Work, I would say, which I would say even then it's pretty irrelevant. Yeah, okay, my bad. You're right. This is still 110 mana, so at least first cast is the same. Uh, honestly, this change is really small then because Elise is very rarely casting twice. I would say it's most relevant in 6th Bruiser. Sometimes Swork Emblem Elise can cast twice, but even then, yeah, I would say those are the lines where it's more relevant, but 10 more mana on second cast is not that impactful because in the fights where she does get a second cast off, the difference between 10 mana tends to not be as much, whereas first cast, the difference in 10 mana is a lot. Okay, so this is pretty small then. Mundo, I mean, this is really small. Like 6 armor MR is extremely small. That's 1/6, or sorry, 6/10 of a cloak and a chain. So let's just say half of a cloak and a chain, so one cloak or chain vest basically. But they also nerfed a spell heal to make up for it. So I mean, this is again not sure why this is listed as large. This is very 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 small. 3-star changes, not much to see here. 3-star Garen and Twitch are a little bit better. 5 cost. Caitlyn's a little bit worse. Less than 5% here, and then a little bit less than 5% here for LeBlanc. So again, like 5% traditionally is small nerf. So these are really small. They'll be, I mean, they'll each be a little bit weaker, but it's really really small. I wouldn't think about it too much. I think like if you're hitting LeBlanc, you're still very happy in Storks, and same thing with Caitlyn in her comps. Victor got a damage buff. Numbers wise, this is pretty big. Like if you look at the death ray, it's like 25%. Yeah, exactly 25%. So everything up at this point has been kind of like 8% tops. So it's like 25% here, and even on his ultimate, it's 20%. So Victor's doing quite a bit more damage. I would say this is only really relevant if you're putting items on him, but he might. Honestly, it might just be really good to itemize this guy now. I think it's kind of like a wait and see, but 25% more damage, and then that is all scaling with the items you have on him. I think he's probably going to be a pretty strong backline carry, is my guess. But probably a wait and see. But I would imagine like 3 damage items on Victor probably feels pretty good. Items, Gold Collector nerfed again. Was still really good. It was nerfed recently. Mogul's Mail buffed. I think like a lot of times with the Shimmer augment, everyone's just kind of picking Gold Collector. Or Gambler's Blade, so this makes sense. Mogul's Mail I definitely think is fine. If you have a tank item to go along with it, and especially if you have an upgrade frontliner, this is pretty often getting you at least 2 gold per round. So, especially if you don't play a team comp that does like way too much damage. Just like, any 2-star frontliner with its trait activated plus the item. There's probably at least 2 gold around. I think Mogul's Mail is definitely really good as long as you use it properly. If you don't have another item to go with it, then it's a lot weaker. Blue and Nashor's manless champions, pretty not relevant. Augment. So a lot of augments got changed. I think some of the big ones are. I mean, Blade Dance. This looks pretty small to me. 3-star Aurelia, which you should have like for most of the game, is this is like a 2%, even less. This is like somewhere between 1 to 2%. So it seems really, really, really small to me. Obviously, they think Aurelia is fine. Sometimes the TFT team will slip in things like this to kind of like as like a placebo buff, where because I know a lot of like if you guys were here for like Greya's conditional presentation, he was like, I would never take this. There's basically whenever I see something like this, I think it's just like the TFT team like telling us that they think it's good already, basically, because this is less than a 2% buff. Which means they already think it's good, but they want people to look at this and be like, oh, maybe I should take Blade Dance. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any experience playing this augment, so I don't have much to say about it one way or the other. I guess all I'll say is the TFT team thinks it's good. Gray doesn't think it's good. I tend to avoid these scenes in high stakes scenarios unless I'm like more confident in them. So like I probably wouldn't take Blade Dance in a tournament. This one is really big, diversified portfolio, 2 per 4. It's pretty reasonable to get 8 traits in. I mean, this is just trait tracker, right? Or Bronze for Life. We're familiar with that. It's pretty reasonable to have that as early as stage 4. So then you're getting 4 gold per round for a silver augment. Compared to Fire Sale, which pre-nerf Fire Sale, I believe I posted it in our Discord somewhere. I wonder if I can find it. Yeah. So at level 9, pre-nerf Fire Sale was 3 gold per round. So this, assuming you can activate it, is 4 gold a round, which is a lot better than even pre-nerf Fire Sale. So I think that is definitely something to look out for. And yeah, you would just have to play a board like Bronze for Life. But they don't have to be bronze traits, just like an emissary board. I think getting 8 traits in is like not too hard. Just like it doesn't have to be emissaries. A lot of what I will say is a lot of the default comps don't quite have 8 traits. For example, I think Scrap is one that has actually like more than average. Why is a Victor in here? That's kind of strange. I'll go ahead and throw in Tristana. So this is one that kind of has like more than average, and it has 7 traits, so just shy. At level 8 or at level 9, you could throw in Sentinel. But note that most like default comps don't quite hit 8 traits, so you will have to modify it a little bit. I think one of them that does hit 8 is this emissary board. This version, Oh, it's interesting. 4 Watcher shows up. Oh wait, that's just Vladimir. Did anyone see Emissaries? Oh, down here. Yeah, this one has. I don't know if it counts Junker Keen. I imagine it does, since it doesn't say non-unique traits. So for example, this one would be 8 traits. But
I'm
a lot of
pretty sure it
emissary
says
boards.
that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure it's non-unique
Really?
on the actual augment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if it
We
says
can
that, I
we can double
okay.
check that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
looking
know.
at it right now. It says 1 gold for every 3 non-unique traits.
I see. Okay.
Can't you just play like TFI and like cook something?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Swain GP.
Right. So this is the level 8 board. So you're just one short. But if you play the Swain and GP, of course, who are both 3 trait units on their own. If you play this version instead of like Sentinel, then like Quick Striker, then you're gonna have you're gonna have enough. What's it Fate? Where's he? So I guess Vi as well. Wait, this is still only 7.
Can you even get 8 on 8?
I guess you can't really get it
On
with like a
meta
standard
board?
comp.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to play like a more Bronze for Life type board, which I have a video on Bronze for Life, but you can do it with. I find it's pretty easy to do with Black Rose. Just by playing like 3 Black Rose and then filling things in, because you can fit in a lot of the 3 trait units. These guys share a trait. These guys share a trait. They're all 3 trait units. These 2 share a trait, and these 2 share a trait. So these are 4 3 trait units. And if you just fill in like 4 extra units from here, I find it pretty easy to get 8.
So
But yeah.
let's-
Sacking your board strength though, just to play 8 traits.
I'm not sure. We'll have to see. It definitely might not be worth it. Yeah, it's hard to say. This might be more of like if you can fast 9, maybe,
Because
because it seems like it's really hard to get at level 8.
I know. I think certain comps can't get it. Like I think maybe Twitch can get it. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if pushing it all the way to 8. But
Also,
Twitch
if you
can
have an
get a lot,
emblem.
right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
my initial thoughts were just like if you have like the powder Camille stub trundle opener, you just get 4 traits on 2-1 and you can cash it out.
Yeah, I mean that's another really good point. On 2-1, if you're getting 2 gold per turn, that's very good for a silver augment. It's extremely good for a silver augment. It's 2 gold per turn. There used to be an augment at the beginning of the set. Maybe it was even PvE only that would give you 2 gold a turn and someone else 2 gold a turn. I don't even remember if that was this set, but it was extremely overpowered. So I think that's a good call as well. If you can get 4 traits in as early as like 2-1, it doesn't even have to be 2-1 exactly. It's already going to be really good on stage 2. Are there other like you mentioned this one?
Camille.
Yeah.
I didn't really think of any others. I just like knew that one like off
Yeah.
the top of my head. Yeah.
Draven, Darius, Vlad +1, I think.
Yeah, true. Dream
Like
Darius
just whatever
Vlad.
sword. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that hard to get. Because you don't have to get at level 5. You can just go 5 on 2-2, and it seems like pretty easy that you should be able to get on 2-2.
You can do it with like Aurelia Vex, Rel plus like.
Oh yeah, that's
whatever.
true. Aurelia Vexrel is a really good one.
Oh wait.
Yeah, you would have to be level 5, but
Oh fuck.
it seems like there's quite a lot of them you can do on level 5. But
Yeah.
with this augment, you could just go 5 on 2-2, and then like you're making 1 gold extra a round. It costs you 8 gold to go level 5, which is less than 1 gold a round. So I definitely think this is worth looking out for on 2-1. It does seem so. My initial instinct was you could take this and get 8 on stage 4, but it seems actually pretty hard to do. I will say if you have emblems, for example, from like Trainer Golem or something like that, or Ambessa Encounter, that's something you can do. But otherwise, it does seem pretty hard to get 8 on level 8. Another thing, I guess, like if you can fast 9, seems maybe okay.
Like just
But yeah, it
saddle
seems.
forward strength for like 8 traits and then go fast 9. Or
Well, I would think he would just play normally,
okay.
but then like it's kind of weird because it's definitely a little weird, but it does seem like if you're in a position to do that from like Crab Rave or something, it could be worth it. Because it kind of makes up for your econ. Because let's say you're making 10 gold, it's basically like you're making 50. Obviously, you're committing a silver augment, which is not even that much. So you're able to just push 9 and get those better shops. Seems I would say like out of everything in the patch notes we've seen so far, this is probably like the biggest change. Eye for an Eye nerfed. Eye for an Eye was really good. This is quite a bit worse. Let's just say you're playing an average of like 6 units, or Eye for an Eye plus. Oh, it's plus only? Even still, even if you're playing 8 units, and you lose half your rounds, and the other half your rounds, they kill half your units, you're probably losing like 6 units on average, so this is like an um, extra like half a round per component, which is like actually a pretty big deal. I would expect this to be like a decent bit worse because of that. Mad Chemist. I'm not too familiar with this one, but I think a lot of players are playing this wrong. I see a lot of people build Bloodthirster, but Singe is not really a drain tank unit. If he's like your last unit alive, you're not going to win. He only needs to touch all the enemy units on the other team just one time to put his poison. Um, so I see a lot of people go with kind of like a BT Archangel build, but I think this is like just very wrong. I think you just go damage, and having like Morello is really good as well. Because he's going to attack the entire enemy team. Either way, Mad Chemist was buffed.
What
Mentorship.
item do you think is like BIS for Singe in this case?
I just think like damage, so maybe something like this. I think like a Hand Justice is like a little bit of Omnivamp is okay, but again, he already has built in. He already had a decent amount, but now it's 30%. This is extremely high. Like Bloodthirster total is 20% Omnivamp. So I think he just want damage, and then that'll like kind of scale with his regular Omnivamp. So I guess like true BIS will be like something around this, but like if you have like he has no natural AP, so AP is really really good. Death Cap and Jewel Gauntlet. So I'd say like these are probably pretty close. Crown Guard as well. I wouldn't really want Spark on Singed because he's gonna walk away from his target. Plus, I'd rather just have like a third damage time on him. So I think either like Crown Guard or Death Cap. Maybe something like this. Yeah. But if you can't get these, I mean, like, red buff is fine. He does scale a little bit with attack speed. Giant Slayer is fine. But having some sort of AP, because he gets no natural AP, is really good. But yeah, I see a lot of people build BT. I personally just think it's pretty bad. Mentorship. Honestly, like, for a silver augment, there's not much to say. I think it's like pretty, it's like a between small and medium. I guess 30 HP. You're probably getting it on like 6 units, so it's like 200 HP. That's kind of more than like the differences between like this like 4 emissary or dominator changes. So I think in the context of it being a silver augment, it's actually like makes me want to pick it a lot less. Survivor, they keep wanting us to pick these augments. I'm always really skeptical. Obviously, there's some amount of gold that they could offer that would make this really good. I'm kind of skeptical it's good enough at 92. This is the one you pick on 2-1, and then it only gives you benefits after people die. Maybe it's okay if you have a really good opener, but I'm a little skeptical. It just doesn't seem like 4 gold is that big of a difference. But yeah, I don't know. If you have a really good opener, I can maybe see it. But generally, you would just want to press the advantage with your opener with like a augment that helps you like maintain a win streak with your good opener. Able scraps. This one gives you an extra component and some gold every carousel, based on the leftover units. It seems kind of similar to Eye for an Eye in a sense. It's like more components than say item grab bag, but comes in delayed. Seems okay. I'm not sure, honestly. It doesn't seem like amazing or anything. I'm personally not that big of a fan of these like scaling augments, but just getting like the one component on stage 2. And then I guess like one thing to note is if you start with an even amount of components, it'll make you one item up on stage 2. But you're also unlikely to be able to craft it immediately. I'm not a huge fan of this personally, but we'll see. It doesn't sound very good to me, I should say. Gold augments, glass cannon. I think glass cannon. This has been buffed again. I think glass cannon is honestly like pretty good with an extra 5% damage amp. It's pretty big. It's like 2 extra stacks of like gold bronze for life. So 5% damage amp is definitely nothing to brush aside. I'm pretty likely to take glass cannon in front to back comps. Moonlight. This is pretty small. I would say like if Moonlight was already good, then it's probably still good. If not, extra 10 ADAP. It's just such a transformative augment that, as with any buff or nerf, it's going to make you a little bit more likely to take it. But I don't think it's not like now you see it and you would take it in spots where you wouldn't take it before that very often. So some of the hero augments, Sisters was underperforming, got buffed. Reunion overperforming, it got nerfed. It was worth noting Echo was nerfed a little bit, but not that much. Same thing in Martial Law, overperforming a little bit. These are all honestly pretty small. The biggest one is probably Sisters. Just because there's not that many comps that naturally can run Vi and Jinx. Jinx is kind of only really good in Rebels. Otherwise, she doesn't really cast fast enough. Like maybe you can use Sisters as like a replacement for Rebels. Because like Ambushers is such an offensive oriented comp that Jinx's cast usually comes in too late, and Vi is kind of hard to fit because you have Echo holding the same Echo and Smeech holding the same items that Vi would want, and they're benefiting from 5 Ambusher. So yeah, I think this is just like kind of hard to fit into any comp. Like Jinx gets it naturally with like a vertical enforcer, but then she's not really casting fast enough in that comp either. The buff itself just doesn't seem that relevant because Jinx attack speed buff 5 seconds. I feel like if you proc this one time, you just probably have it like close to perma uptime. Anyway, so it seems pretty relevant. Training arc. This is a pit fighter augment, I believe. Yeah, they buffed 6 pit fighter. Maybe they're like kind of pushing this, but I feel like 6 pit fighter. Maybe I just haven't seen it enough. But it doesn't. It seems to have been like too far off viable that these small things are not going to be good enough. I'm definitely not interested in training arc. An extra 5 HP per win is so small, also. Because even if we're assuming we're winning 3 out of 5 per round, let's say even when we're winning 4 out of 5, which is like really generous, that's only 20 HP per stage, which is, I mean, really small. Like, an extra spat in Cooking Pot is like 300 HP per stage, as we were talking about in chat recently. So there's like 20 HP per stage. Assuming you're winning 4, it seems like so irrelevant. Trifecta. I mean, this is pretty big. 5% attack speed. Like I said with Glass Cannon, 5% damage amp. Pretty big. So if you're kind of on the fence about Trifecta before, now it's a lot better. Why not both? I think this was buffed recently, but wasn't enough. I think this is also underperforming right now since Swain and Gameplank are both really hard to 3-star. If that still is the case, I would probably still stay away from this. I would expect it to still be the case, just because a lot of the changes are small. Yeah, it's just Gameplank is really highly contested, and Swain is also really highly contested, so this is just really hard to play. And yeah, if you're not 3-starring them, then this is not going to be worth it. Anger issues, small nerf. Pretty small, honestly. In the spots where it was good before, still was good. You can see Gray's video, which Learning TFT reposted for that. For some spots on when to play it. Belt overflow gives you an extra belt, and then it gives you an extra belt and it gives you like one less belt of HP. So it's a little bit better. I mean, obviously, just having a component to combine is nice. Overall, though, pretty small change. Exalted Adventure, this was performing really well, got nerfed a bit. Glorious Evolution was really hard to make. Honestly, I could see taking this if you need Victor as a backline carry now, along with the Victor buff. Victor damage buff. Like, if for whatever reason you just really need a backline carry, and keep in mind he can use any type of items, like AP or AD. So I could see that. Immovable Object. This was too powerful with Scrap specifically, so they nerfed it overall. It's gonna be a decent bit worse. So this is 10%, but it's 10% off of 60. So it's really almost like a 20% nerf to the augment in a sense, which is really big. I probably would not take this unless you're playing Scrap if you can. Just because like it's so powerful with Scrap, it had to be nerfed. Sometimes it's just going to be your best option, though, because it still is team-wide combat on stage 4 too. Lucky Gloves on 2-1 nerfed. Lucky Gloves is really good. I think it'll still be fine. It gives you good tempo on stage 2, and reasonable scaling with the third glove. Puppy Up got nerfed with 1 and 2 got nerfed, and then 3 got buffed. So I guess this is just underperforming. 4% attack speed is pretty big, so hopefully this will be good now. Spoils of War 3 got buffed. I think this is like a 10% buff. This augment was really bad. I'm inclined to think it'll still be bad, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm inclined to think Spoils of War will still be pretty bad. Prismatic. Silver is really good, and then gold is like not great, but takeable. And it's been that way for like 4 sets now, so yeah. Another team up augment, Genius is buffed. Again, like I mentioned with the Vijinx one, really hard to play these 2 units in the same comp. I actually took this in Macau and ended up just not playing one of the 2 units. Like it's just so hard to fit these 2 units together. Echo and Heimer. Trifecta 2, pretty big buff here. This is 9% AS compared to 5% AS here. So yeah, I guess like if you can use this, it's probably good, but it's hard to use in the meta right now. Center of the Universe. I think this is what it used to be before it got buffed, I believe. Could be wrong about that, but it's overperforming a bit. Infectious. If you guys saw my video, I thought this would give you like 1 stack per round, but obviously it starts giving you like 8 stacks per round after just like 3 or 4 rounds. So it's actually really good. Got nerfed very, very big. But I think this will still be good especially if you have if you're in a spot where like you can afford to scale a bit. I think Infectious will still be super good. You're basically going to be like 1 round behind in terms of like the scaling once you've hit your whole board. Last Chance nerfed. Kind of Teamwork, really small. Touch of Frost. The problem with Titan of Teamwork is honestly you can probably take this in like some sort of Sentinel reroll, like Zeri or Tristana. Yeah, you can probably take this in like a Sentinel or Watcher, or not Watcher, Sentinel specifically only, since it's durability. Touch of Frost buffed. I think Touch of Frost is already pretty reasonable on Twitch. It's a lot better in comps with or comps and just portals or game states with a lot of items, where you're not relying on like one unit to do all your damage. Because obviously you're taking this at the cost of a damage anomaly. But I think it's like pretty good on like Twitch or Caitlyn can kind of tag the entire enemy team.
I saw it played on 6 Visionary Heimer and it looked so good. Like
Yeah,
I'm
Heimer tags a lot of
looking
units.
at it.
Heimer kind of doesn't hit the enemy backline that early though, so I'm a little bit scared because Heimer doesn't hit backline until kind of late into the fight. But Jinx and Twitch will both do it. Or sorry, Twitch and Caitlyn. Especially if Caitlyn has a mana item, so she can like start casting right away, like blue Caitlyn. But yeah, yeah, you can definitely try it on Heimer. I think Twisted Fate also actually, if you have like a mana item on this guy, and will tend to hit backline pretty early.
I like taking it on Zoe also.
Yeah, Zoe will hit backline as well. Yeah, I think the most important thing is if you have like multiple carries, becomes better because then obviously like if you're giving up a damage anomaly on like one of your 3 carries, it's not as impactful if you're like solo carrying a unit. But yeah, this seems pretty reasonable to me. Buff here and a nerf for Voracious Appetite. I did not think Voracious Appetite was that good. Honestly, I think it like after seeing it is maybe like okay, but another thing that I've talked about before, but Riot tends to balance a lot off data, and I would just assume data wise this is like vastly overrepresented because no one is going to take this at 20 HP. It's kind of like Comeback Story was really underrepresented and it like got a small buff and then reverted before it went live. I would imagine this is performing extremely well in data, but people probably only take it if they're high HP. I don't think this is very good, and I didn't think it was that good before, and I think this is a really big nerf. I think this is probably like, in my opinion, like completely untakeable. Maybe if your spot is so good, you can like afford to like try to scale into this, but you have to be like, I would think I would need to be in a spot where I'm already averaging in like the 1s or like the 2s at the worst to even like think about this. Okay, I think that's probably gonna wrap it up here. So overall, even these large changes are really small. I would say like the biggest change are some of the augments, like diverse portfolio. Definitely look out for this. Mad Chemist, like this is pretty sizable. Yeah, a lot of these are still pretty small. Like Trifecta 2 is like kind of big. I'm not sure like what comps you would play with it though. Like you used to play Kog'Maw, but kind of fallen off a bit. Oh, Victor, yeah. Itemizing Victor, I would say like this is the other like thing that looks big to me. I would think Victor's actually pretty good with items now. But overall, I would say like overall really small change. More things were nerfed than buffed. And Bessa, this is a pretty small buff, but she's already like pretty reasonable. So same thing with Heimer. Like Ambessa and Heimer, like really small buffs, but already doing pretty well. So might be some comps to look out for, like a little bit more, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, overall pretty small patch. Which I think makes sense. I think I've been I've said this before, but yeah, since I've been competing in TFT since set 6, this set has been even like 2 patches ago has been kind of like the most balanced in terms of like units being viable and comps being viable. So it makes sense that they don't want to mix it up too much. Alright, I'll probably end it here. If anyone has any like questions about, I guess really anything, it doesn't have to be about the patch, I can answer them as well. Oh wait, let me check VC chat real fast.